We're back with the line now. Certainly, this is a time for action, even as oil prices slump and a COVID-19 caused global recession. New Mexico has an economic cushion from the past couple of years, certainly, but the bills will come due. The question is, at least in part, how soon? And a lot of this will require a special session. No one's denying that. There's some question about when to hold it, certainly. The Speaker of the House says before the new fiscal year in July. Does that need to happen quickly, or can the state start spending and deal with the cost once it has a better idea what the actual cost is? Now, also throw in what we're getting from the federal government as well. Should we wait until all those factors are in before we make a move here?
Yes, we should wait until those factors are in because we just have to have another session.
Right.
Recall that when we were losing money in the oil industry before, we had sometimes multiple sessions per year. So I think getting some information before we make decisions makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. The question is how. Go ahead, Tom.
Being informed is good. Reactionary is not. But I think that there's an opportunity for the governor, for the speaker, majority leader to all get together and say, you know what, we are going to have it on such and such a day or such time frame. Just have them all get together on that, because that will provide some peace of mind that yes, indeed, it is something that's going to be addressed.
Right. Laura, interestingly, I saw this quote from House Minority Whip Rod Montoya out of Farmington. He said a web-only session wouldn't be legal. We don't have a constitutional ability that allows us to have this kind of things done remotely. Is that going to be a problem at some point?
That was an interesting quote from Rod Montoya. But I found Raul Burciaga's comment interesting as well. Raul is the head of legislative counsel, and he's an attorney, very well respected, very knowledgeable about the state law, obviously, and the Constitution. And when he was asked, he said, "That's a decision above my pay grade," which
Right.
tells me that that really is going to come down to the leadership making a judgment call about that. What's interesting is there isn't a specific authority in the Constitution that says, yes, you can have a remote session.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have to keep in mind that this idea of having remote, Zoom access and all that has been a fairly recent thing. Web, remote type of meetings, aside from just phone conferences, but, actually being on video teleconferences, that's a very recent thing. So it's not surprising that the Constitution doesn't permit something like that, provide the authority. The question is, does it prohibit that?
Mm-hmm.
And there is some information, or there are some requirements about being, providing a majority, and we've had rules in both houses about being on the floor at a particular time. So I think it's subject to interpretation, but we're living in very extraordinary times right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is an emergency situation, I think that it calls for trying to do what we can to make sure that our leaders can move forward with making good policy and addressing our budget problems.
That's right.
Without putting their health in jeopardy.
Well, let's get to that. Good. Who was saying something?
Well, I agree with that. I think it's really important to understand that making policy is a public process. And how do we go about shedding light on what our legislators are doing during this process is not a trivial thing to consider.
That's a good point.
I mean, the reason we meet is at a public place is so that the public can come and interact with legislators on these critical issues. So, we need to think about, when we're thinking about that process, how do we go about including the public in that?
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that, but also I think that the Zoom capability is also another option. And I'll give an example. The Public Regulation Commission right now, which I deal with on a fairly regular basis with my job, they've instituted a Zoom only process for their open meetings. So you literally have the commissioners up on the dais doing their work. You have general counsel and chief of staff, and then any other staff people presenting at the table. And then you have parties, not just web streaming so that you can listen passively, but they've actually enabled a Zoom capability so that parties can actually comment if necessary. So, I mean, we're talking about a lot more people that might be interested in participating in that way with the legislature, obviously. But I think technology has caught up where we can actually start to figure out how to institute that. And it sounded to me from the articles, especially what Raul Burciaga said, that the technology is there. It's really a question about whether the legal tools are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not everyone has the technology, I think. Not every voter in particular or citizen has access to that technology. So, I mean, I just think it's an important thing for us to consider. And I do think that health is important. So I'm not opposed to moving in that direction for an emergency, but I do think we need to consider how the public can play a part in that.
That's a fair
Well,
warning.
one of the things, though, is that I think Lana brought up early on is that I think that, the platform, as far as how it occurs, that's more of a technical issue. But Lana brought up a great point in that how are the legislators going to hear from the constituents? How are they going to be able to get that information? And one of the things that I think the governor's office has done a smart thing with is creating this economic rapid response task force, which is something that includes economic development, workforce solutions, tourism departments. And they have put out a questionnaire. I received it through the New Mexico Hospitality Association, just asking small businesses, how they've been impacted, but more importantly, what types of things would you like to be able to see addressed? Not necessarily for the 60 days or for a special session, rather, but some of the things that I had just kind of shared with them was to help smaller communities get funding for large private and public sector infrastructure, freeze for small businesses, freeze unemployment insurance assessments at 2019 levels,
Right.
Provide the opportunity to delay tax payments, provide a tax credit on small business loan interest paid in 2020. Those are just a few of the things, but the fact that they are going out and asking, the public what their thoughts are, I think that's a good first step.
We've got about a minute 20 here on this segment. Let me ask you this, Lana, go to you. I mean, there's going to have to be some decisions if this thing tracks the way it does, or, we're talking about potentially peeling back raises for state employees, a lot of things that were fundamental to the governor's goals that she came in with. Those are going to be long, hard discussions, it seems to me. That's something that can't be handled in a 2 or 4 day time frame. How long do you think we could have a special session to hash these things out? I could imagine a couple of weeks is not unreasonable, it would seem to me.
They usually don't go that long.
Exactly.
So, I think that there's a lot of things that go out in advance and sort of, how that's structured by the governor and what they're going to have to do. There's going to be a lot of, pre-decisions. And of course, the numbers themselves are going to speak to what we have to do. I mean,
Right.
Cutting salaries, that's got to be on the table. Given the loss of income that we're seeing. So I think that those numbers are going to really clarify that. And I think it's really a tough time for Governor Lujan Grisham, because this is exactly what Governor Martinez faced year after year, unable to actually provide new funding for any programs. Hopefully that's not a long-term situation for her term.
We'll see when. It's going to be when and then how. We'll see how that all shakes out. We're out of time for that one. We'll be back to talk about the implications for the primary elections with this group in just a moment.